The funny thing is I keep having people from the Ontario party tell me they've read your lawsuit and that you're absolutely correct about the voter fraud, but then they still go around calling you divisive despite the fact that they'll acknowledge that you're literally the one that's being forced out a lot of the time.
You're getting me excited. So can I get into that, Daniel? Like,
yeah.
You sure?
There's some questions in the chat, but we can do that after. So, guys, I've read your questions. They'll come up, but...
Okay, so Ontario party, right?
Yeah.
You know, what are they, like truth and justice, or I don't even know what their slogan is, right? It's all about holding the Bible up in the air, right? And good Christian men. Their voter fraud, 2018 convention. Have you ever heard them send an email out about that? Have you ever heard them say, that was a good bill Belinda put forward? Why won't they talk about voter fraud and internal party elections or convention or what they're going to do about it? Why won't they talk about the lobbyists and how they're running the show? I'm sure like maybe Derek's watching now with, chewing his nails and he's like writing notes and he's going to copy another one of my emails like he usually does. He copied the Doug Ford PCs or a wing of the Justin Trudeau Liberal Party, dropped it in an email 2 days later. Long string of that stuff. But why?
I remember when Aaron O'Toole did that. One of his better days in policy is like, I'm like, oh yeah, Jim Colorado said this last week.
Right. So I'm flattered. It's flattering.
So you're doing people's homework. You're the kid they're copying off of in class.
I'm flattered. It works, right? Like it works. Axe the carbon tax, against critical race theory, voter fraud bad. Not really hard work. Not really. Doesn't take a lot of analysis to come to these conclusions. But why won't Sloan's party talk about this stuff? Why doesn't Derek Sloan talk about it? Well, because kind of his team in the back was in on it. They were in on it. Derek Sloan's riding president in Hastings on the Conservative Party was part of Brian Patterson's slate, the slate of lobbyists that were taking over the Ontario PC party at that 2018 convention. That's his riding president, his go-to man, Carlos, who when they got kicked out by O'Toole, after they had a deal with O'Toole and that federal leadership in 2020, and they did the deed for O'Toole and attacked Leslie Lewis and suppressed her second ballot vote from the Sloan team. They spent their whole time attacking Leslie. And when O'Toole and the progressives in the CPC had enough of them, they booted them. And Carlos wrote a letter, Mr. Carlos, who was Sloan's riding president, public letter. Wow, I've never seen such an attack on the grassroots. Except the year before, 2 years before, Carlos was on Brian Patterson's executive. As a result, a slate where Patterson won because of voter fraud at 2018 convention. And then fast forward a year later, Sloan's riding president is on that executive. Belinda and me and 18 others get kicked off the Cambridge PC executive. Patterson calls a vote to kick us off. And Sloan's riding president, I get the report on the votes in favor of kicking us out. So maybe that's why they don't talk about it. Maybe they don't talk about voter fraud because they were in on it.
This is my thing when Sloan got kicked out, because Wyatt was the former president of the Derek Sloan fan club. And we were trying to be like, Wyatt, he's just a politician, pump the brakes on this. But like when he got kicked out, we reached out to, we told him we had a conversation like, Derek, okay, listen. Everyone on your staff has been contacted by Aaron O'Toole or someone and offered a deal to betray you, because this is how things work. It's politics. This is Game of Thrones, but it's Canada, so no one dies. But still, it's kind of Game of Thrones. Not everyone on your team has your best interest. And then, of course, he kept the exact same team around him, which are all longtime Conservative Party operatives. And then someone got in his ear, because he's obviously not the brightest guy, to tell him to go out to Alberta. So Derek Sloan leaves his riding. If you don't like, this is why it's frustrating that Derek Sloan has another reason, like he has an Ontario party. Oh, the irony. The man was tricked out of leaving his riding where he had a thing, and he like let his wife run there.
I saw the internal party polling. It was a tie before he left in that riding. He was at 22%, and everyone was slightly below him or slightly ahead of him.
Yeah, and then he ran away to Alberta to go fight Brad Richards or take away the SoCon vote from the PPC. But
Blake Richards.
Whatever, who cares? Brad Richards is a hockey player, so Blake Richards is just, I don't know, he's like getting out to like, you get my point. Like, why was he going out to Alberta? And then he gets the audacity to leave Ontario, go to Alberta, where he ran as an independent with this crazy plan to run 50 million independents and do that and work together instead of just joining the PPC. And now he's back to run the Ontario party, which is going to fight critical race theory by voting for critical race theory. Like,
okay, so Daniel, you're really nice. Like, you're too kind to these guys, because the reality is Derek's got a law degree. He practiced for a year or two in law school, and he knows what he's doing. He's not naive. These are all done on purpose, these things. So let's review the history. They find this guy out of nowhere. He runs in 2019 for Scheer.
Mm-hmm.
Back then, no one knew this guy as a social conservative. You could see his interviews running into that 2019 campaign as the candidate for the CPC in Hastings. He's asked about the carbon tax. He's asked about the Paris Accord in interviews on the radio. He's asked about, even what he had a 12-point pro-life plan when he ran for leader. But before he ran for leader, he wouldn't even say he's pro-life. He couldn't even get it out of his mouth. And so no one knew who this guy Sloan was. And they ran him in that 2020 leadership. And the operatives needed to exploit conservative voters one more time. That's the goal, right? Get them to fork over lots of money because we got Aaron O'Toole running and he can't beat McKay on his own. So we need someone like a Sloan to bring that vote over to O'Toole. And I'm in that race. And the Sloan team plants a saboteur on my campaign. And they set me up to get me disqualified. Unthinkable to get disqualified halfway through a race. That was orchestrated with the help of the Derek Sloan campaign. For the rest of that leadership, he doesn't attack Aaron O'Toole once on the basis that why did you call for Jim Carhalios to get disqualified? Doesn't do it once in the whole race. Spends his entire time attacking Leslyn Lewis, and they're supposedly both Christian politicians, but he focuses attacks on her because he dug up her PhD thesis and she was part of eGale Canada at some point. Okay, fine. It's fair criticism. It's politics, right? You can do that. She didn't, I don't know. It depends on who you ask. If she handled those criticisms, fine. But that was all fair game for Derek Sloan. And then they pushed, and so O'Toole won, and his team congratulated. The Sloan team congratulated Aaron. And they stuck with Aaron, and then they asked Christians and conservatives one more time, fork over lots of money to the CPC convention, millions of dollars to the CPC. 5,500 people went to that convention, and then they dispatched Sloan after 5,500 people bought delegate tickets to that convention because supposedly they were going to take over the Conservative Party of Canada National Council. But I guess while they were campaigning for it, Sloan and his operatives, they couldn't even be bothered finding candidates to run for every position on National Council. They only ran 2 or 3 or something. That's not much of a campaign. So when you say his next move was going to Alberta because he was going to start the greatest grassroots, quote, the greatest grassroots movement in Canadian history, he was going to start out of Alberta. And why did he do that? You got to ask Daniel, why did he do that? And Wyatt saw the polling. He had a better shot in Hastings. But when you run in the Alberta seat, in the safest seat for the Conservative Party of Canada, what are you doing? You're letting the CPC regain the seat in Hastings rather than Sloan winning it. And you can tell your donors, I'm in Alberta fighting, and make good, raise good money in Alberta. And even if he did really well in Alberta and got 5,000 votes, which
and here's something about that Banff Airdrie race that looking, and you don't really notice this stuff, and this is where I can kind of mea culpa on this stuff, where I'm looking at this stuff, and it's like, well, you see people working on the campaign, but everyone was a free volunteer on that campaign, despite the fact that I was told that they had maxed out the maximum amount of money that they were allowed to raise, which is something like $140,000. There was not more than $20,000 spent on that race, I can guarantee you. There was not, you don't, like, how much does a campaign sign cost? Maybe if they like printed off 1,000 of them,
neon
you could
sparkles,
maybe go to
like,
well,
yeah, there was not that much money spent on it. Daniel, they were only there for 2 weeks. That was not a lot.
The only guy in Canada that knows the inner workings of that campaign. Like, you know, all about that campaign is like 1,300 votes. He got, what did he get? I don't know. He got like nothing. Anyway, it
was like 2,000, but whatever. Yeah, it was nothing.
Never going to win in that seat. Never. But more nefarious. Why am I saying this stuff? Because his team, the Sloan Nichols duo, the Sloan Nichols gang, and their co-conspirators of PC operatives and PC sympathizers, they've done this for a long time. This is the way they operate. Secret backroom deals that exploit conservative voters with false promises. He promised, he said, donate here. I'm starting a federal party. It's coming any minute now. It's like, right. I promise, like, the bureaucrats, nothing. Where's the party? It was never set up. The poor people across Canada who gave this guy money to start a federal party that he never started. He's never registered that part. I feel so bad for those people who donated to him because he's holding up the Bible and swearing that he's a man of God and of faith and all that stuff that certain voters want to hear, and claiming he's for integrity, and he got them to hand over money to donate to him for a federal party that he never even bothered to register. And Daniel, why I say like don't feel sorry for him?
I don't feel sorry for him, no.
Well, no, but like you know when you say like he got duped?
Yeah.
I fell for it, right? Because I had people telling me, poor guy, they duped him to go to Alberta. So on election night, I texted him because I'm like, the guy is going to get crushed in Alberta, and he's going to, I don't know, it's going to crush him or something. I don't know what's going to happen to this guy. Left his wife and kids for a month. So I texted him, and the New Blue board, when I told them at the next board meeting that I texted, they looked at me like, what are you doing? Who told you to text Derek Sloan? I was like, oh, okay. We know this guy is an exploiter and a deceiver. Why are you texting him? Okay, I felt bad for him. And we spoke on the phone, and I said, when you get back to Ontario, you come back? You come back to Ontario? Let's meet. Oh, yeah, for sure. And he swore up and down, I'm doing a federal party. I got the text messages. Let's meet, coffee, something. His buddy, Mike Thiessen, the Pastor Thiessen, said he's going to set up a meeting, right? He's going to sit me down and Sloan down and Randy down and Rick down and Rome, and we're going to all broker it. And I said, Mike, our team, we got the texts. We said, look, Jim will be there anytime, anywhere in Ontario. I will come to a meeting. The staff, the New Blue team said, Jim will be there. Belinda can only come. She's not skipping work at the legislature to go to your meeting, but any other time, fine. He sets the date in November, I think, for one meeting, end of October. Jim will be there. No one wants to go. No one else wants to go. I go, okay, Mike, me and Derek then. We'll sit down, the three of us. We'll talk about the state of the future of Canada. And we'll canceled. First meeting canceled. Next meeting next week. Okay, Jim's there, committed. In between the two meetings, Randy decides to start a fake party, supposedly. I called it out. I said, fake party. Randy's not running the election. Never going to register this party. Next meeting, canceled. And fast forward, Randy didn't run. He's not running again. Randy never started the party. So I'm sorry, like, for calling the truth, but that's what happened. So those meetings never happened.
I love it. This is my favorite part of the night.
Really?
This is better than drinking. Oh, this is better than drinking on St. Patrick's Day. I love this stuff.
Like a scotch or something. And it's really in the weeds. And I'm telling people because people are asking, they want to know the truth. We got emails yesterday. Why aren't you guys cutting a secret backroom deal with Derek Sloan? Do you know how many emails we guys got? Guys, we got flooded with emails. 11. We got 11 emails. 11 people in Ontario out of the thousands that are visiting our website every day and hundreds that are emailing us every day. 11 people want to know what the deal is with us and Sloan. So for those 11 people, I'm going to spend the next 15 minutes and we're going to put it on video and it's going to be there and you can watch, click on Daniel and Wyatt's podcast and you get, for that 11, that massive number of 11 people, I'm going to spend 15 minutes on this, okay? Maybe a little longer. So where were we? That meeting never happened in October, right? The meeting that I said I'd have, a group of pastors stepped up in September before that October meeting. They wanted to come and talk about the New Blue because they heard Jim was back out of a wheelchair fighting cancer. Okay, let's have a meeting. We brought him over to our CFO's house. Big spread, 2 hours. Gave him the inside scoop. Pastor Rock was there, Pastor Thiessen, Pastor Hildebrand's son, a couple other guys I never heard of. They brought whoever they wanted. We gave them the whole inside scoop. Here's the Constitution. Here are the riding associations they're getting registered. Here's the plan. Inside scoop. They were saying stuff like, are you well enough to handle an election campaign? Well, I don't know. I was building this party while I was doing chemo, and now I'm done, and I'm walking. So I think I'm ready to go. Okay, will you have a meeting with the other guys? Yeah, any meeting you guys want. They're not going to go for it because they're not running. That meeting never happened. And then a month later, after dodging me for 3 months, Derek calls and he says, I'm leading some new party. What happened to the federal party? Oh, I don't know. We're going to do both. Oh, you're running for prime minister and premier at the same time. I'm thinking in my head. Okay, great. So why are you calling me, right? I'm thinking he's going to say something like, I desire to be like the premier and let's have a leadership or nothing. He just says, and prior to that, I had asked him, do you have, Hastings is supposedly your home turf, Derek. Do you want, we're registering riding associations. I don't want to step on your toes, and your wife ran there federally. maybe, we could discuss who do you recommend be the leader, like the president, the first president of the New Blue in Hastings. Never gets back to me. Well, I didn't need to ask because his entire supporter base in Hastings is within the New Blue. Like they just said, we're going to go with New Blue. But out of courtesy, I asked him, never got back to me. And then he called me to say he's doing this new party. And for the end of December, year-end donations, he got poor Ontarians to give him money, right, on a tax credit basis. And all of January and all of February, he got Rick Nichols revived. Rick Nichols was retiring. He was so sad. He said, if only the PC party will take me back. Rick Nichols was so upset. He got Rick Nichols to pretend to join the Ontario party. But 3 months later, Rick Nichols was still an independent at Queen's Park. It wasn't until we blew the whistle and said Rick Nichols voted in favor of critical race theory and he's still an independent, then Rick Nichols changed his status. It wasn't until I was responding to interviews with, I think, on a podcast with Wyatt, I can't remember, but the Rebel, True North in the Ottawa convoy, they asked me about this party, this Rick Nichols and Derek Sloan. I said, these guys aren't even running. Like Derek Sloan has said he's not running in the next election. Rick Nichols has said he's retired. He wants to be.
I've had several people on the Ontario Party campaign tell me, not to my face because it's on the phone, but tell me that he's not running, and that this is just for donation purposes, just donation gathering for whatever they're planning on doing elsewhere. And then suddenly now I'm hearing a few minutes later, now they're saying, oh well, he's gonna run, and I'm like, no, even if he's running, is he really running? Because there's registering your name and then there's actually running.
Right. And he was asked. So look, we're past the 15 minutes. So Diana and Paul and the other 9 people that asked, please, I'm committing for all 11 of you who emailed and want to know why there's no deal between the New Blue and the Ontario Party that came from Alberta. This is for the 11 people. This is how much I care. We're spending more than a minute per email, right, at this point. So, so they started. And the media asked him, Derek, are you going to run the next election? I have no plans of running the next election. That's a quote. He didn't tell his supporters that. He told the media that. But in the emails to his supporters asking for money, I'm going to fight. We're fighting. Again, we're going to create another great movement like the one he was starting federally that never happened to fight Doug Ford. He reveals in one of his emails that he's got to deal with the Stop the Sex Ed party. Now, talk about paper parties. Here's a political party that was established. They ran 3 candidates in the last election, the minimum, in order to not get deregistered. They collect donations to do some advocacy through another advocacy group called PAFE. The leader of that party doesn't campaign, doesn't run in elections, but Derek Sloan said in an email to his supporters, we're not running 124 candidates because wherever the Stop the Sex Ed paper party is going to run candidates, we're not running a candidate. Okay, so he's brokered a deal in the back with a political party, the Stop the Sex Ed party, that's run by PC operatives, that engages in PC leadership races. That's this paper party, whose leader doesn't campaign, doesn't make public appearances, doesn't put her name on the ballot. He's gone off and brokered a backroom deal, and he's admitted to his supporters he's not running 124 candidates. Okay. And he's brought Rick Nichols on.
To be fair, I think Queenie, the leader of the party, did technically run in 2018, but it was telling that she had the lowest amount of votes out of everyone that the party ran. So
that's
clearly
fine.
Was not out there on the doors.
Well, that's fine. She ran in a by-election the first time out, right? But then in 2018, in the general election, she did not run. They ran 3 candidates. She wasn't one of them. She ran a by-election before that, and she doesn't campaign. That's fine. That's fine. Good for them. They're doing whatever they want to do with the Stop the Sex Ed party. They're an advocacy group that engages in PC leaderships. They get involved in PC leaderships. Queenie has been a delegate at a PC convention. And you guys know that if they were a legit party, the PC party would not allow the leader of another party to go to convention and vote as a delegate. They're not going to let me show up at a convention and speak at the mic and vote, right? So they're
usually ban you for being a member if you're already a member of another party.
Right. You got to pay
Wyatt was at the federal Conservative Party thing, and mentioning your name would get the comments disabled. My name too. We both had names that would get get auto banned. So and this is my thing of why I trusted you guys, because when Belinda voted against Bill 195, they burned everything, all the infrastructure you guys had down to the ground, and not in the most transparent ways possible. So that's okay. clearly Doug Ford doesn't like what you guys are doing and feels like it's not a good thing in his own interest, right? When other people like decide they're going to run a new party or they're going to do this, but they're still getting government money, I go, yeah, probably not a threat to the Conservative Party.
Right. The New Blue Party, we're against secret backroom deals. Like, that's basically the premise of why we started the New Blue Party. Secret backroom deals are deciding who candidates are going to be in elections, are deciding policy, deciding everything. We're against that. So, like, before we keep going, I want to thank Derek Sloan, because 2 days ago on Twitter, he just blew his mind. Like, and he just went out and he said, Jim and the New Blue Party, they won't accept my secret backroom deal to thwart democracy. Yeah, you're right, because we're not into secret backroom deals. And our board met after you sent us the proposal for a backroom deal to exploit conservative voters. And they said, we're not into that. We don't want to negotiate on a secret backroom deal with Derek Sloan, because that's how he operates. That's his existence. That's how him and his team have operated and everything they've done. So it's painful for these 11 people that emailed us, and 5 of them, I think, are with Derek. So for 5 of them, the other 6 are writing emails saying, does this guy think like we don't get it? Like, this guy, Derek Sloan, think we don't get it? And it's a shame for the other 6 or the other 5 that they're not seeing it, but we're going to explain it to them, because I feel really bad that they're sending this guy money and they haven't been able to put the pieces together.
Have they even registered a donation over $200 yet? Because I believe you have to.
Report
those as you go.
Let's not underestimate it, right? Like, he's raising money. Like, at the end of December, for the end of the calendar year, I think he raised over 100 grand. I think I saw in Queen's Park today, or one of those internal things. He raised over 100 grand. 100,000 from people in Ontario at the worst time in Ontario's history is raising that money for a party that has no members, has no riding associations, for a leader that's not even running in the next election, for an MPP, Rick Nichols, who said he was retiring and only came out to say he's going to run again. You know when he came out to say that? When we announced that the first application deadline had finished for the New Blue, and we had finished all our interviews, and we announced that we had almost 200 applicants, and they knew that we had people interested in running in Chatham. 2 days after we made it public that the Chatham, no, it was the same day, I think, we released our second deadline, and we took Chatham off the list, Rick Nichols riding, which showed you that we had a candidate there. Great candidate. She signed up. Rhonda signed up. She's ready to go. She's fantastic. She's amazing. And then Rick comes out and goes, I'm running again. So also they could say, oh, look, the New Blue Party's running. So, no, we're not running against Rick Nichols. He was retiring. He was done. What did they think we were going to do? Sit around like Randy wanted us to do? Sit around, do nothing for a year while these guys sorted it out so that we could roll around into April and not have anything set up? You said you're retiring, Rick. It's time to get out of the way. Lead or get out of the way. And you're in the way, Rick Nichols. You're not reading 6-page bills on critical race theory. You're not sure if you're running again. Get out of the way. We got a candidate in Chatham, and they're running. And so they came out with Rick saying, but it's amazing. Derek still won't say he's running. He's not committed to running. So then we announced 112 candidates just 7 or 8 days ago, or 9 days ago. And third round of applications for us for 12 ridings left. And not surprisingly, the next day, Derek Sloan comes out and he makes it public that he sent us a letter 7 days ago, which was the first time he'd ever contacted us in more than 3 months. It was the first time, and he's got my phone number, never called, never texted. After he knew we had over 100 candidates in place, he sent the letter and he made it public a couple days ago to say, I asked the New Blue Party for a secret backroom deal where we could sit down and exploit conservative voters and put together a scheme that would help Doug Ford and the PCs by making sure that the New Blue Party doesn't run candidates in every riding. And Derek was upset, and his 11 supporters were upset that we didn't take a secret deal. I think,
and just so I can
on secret deals for 5
years.
I mean,
Jim, you're right to call it a secret backroom deal. The way it's being phrased for anyone out there in public who might have been following this, I think what you're referring to is the fact that Derek Sloan's talking about cooperation, and what we want to do is cooperate with all these different parties So we'll work with New Blue and the Ontario Party and the Stop the Sex Ed and all these different parties, and we'll all decide where to run candidates, and we'll have 5 different parties in Ontario running everyone out there. And to anyone with like half a political brain, you go, this is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Like Jim's brain is going, that's a backroom deal, and I'm with you there. But even if it's not, even if you take Derek at his word, and he's totally in, doing this for altruistic, reasons to fight for conservative values, it's still so stupid that if you want to work together with another party, you join them under one banner. Like you need, right? People, like if you have the New Blue Party, the Ontario Party, the Stop and all these different parties, people don't know which one to really vote for, right? You need it all under one banner, right? To then go, oh, I like New Blue, so I hear Jim, okay, that's the New Blue candidate here in Chatham or here in Cornwall or here in Don Valley West. Like that's how these things work. You can't have one party, like you can't have New Blue Don Valley West, but it's Ontario Don Valley East, and everyone's just supposed to know it's the same thing. Like that's crazy. That's absolutely crazy. Like no one would know that.
You're being kind of hard on, because there are some people that get Derek's emails, right? And they don't know the history of the PC party because they got better things to do than get in the weeds on this stuff like we do. And God bless them. Like they're raising their family and working really hard. And they see this guy, Derek, and they don't know, like, oh, Derek's been at this for a while. They don't know Derek had a deal with Aaron O'Toole. They don't know that Derek was pretending to start a federal party. For all they know, this is the same party Derek was talking about starting federally, right? And he's exploiting those people. Derek Sloan is exploiting those people. They hit pay or donate on the email. They send the money and they think Derek Sloan's a virtuous man on the right path. And even people inside politics think that Derek is being played by PC operatives when he is clearly in on everything he's been doing for the
even
last...
even then, it doesn't matter if you're in on it or not. Like at this point, I'm convinced he knows everything that's going on. You could have started off naive. Getting to this point, you know that you've either figured out you were duped and you're just going along with it because it's a good career path at this point.
And I'm on the thing of like, even if he is duped and naive and trying to do the right thing, the thing is still stupid. What he's doing, even if it's the right thing, it's on my pointing out. It's still an idiotic idea, even if it's from a good place.
Like you don't reform Ontario through good intentions while not having any clue actually how to get things done. And that's where I'm looking at, like, that's where I think I even got a call early on where they're trying to like pitch what they're doing to me. And like the first call, I was like, that doesn't make sense. You guys should immediately just say, we're going to merge this tiny party into the New Blue party. Then we're going to go off and do something else, because that's the only way you can come out of this without looking insane. Like I was like, this immediately on paper smells like a scam.
Yeah.
Like, so even if you guys are genuine, it smells like a scam.
Can we flesh it out? Like we're going to so I got 2 emails on why, please explain to me why it's not a good idea. Diana and Paul, 2 people in Ontario. There's 14 million people, but I'm going to commit the next 15 minutes to the 2 people that emailed the New Blue Party, want to know why it's a bad idea. And I'm not going to be like, Danny, you're being a little offensive by like saying it's stupid, but like, let's walk them through it. Because these people have better things to do than be political junkies like us, okay?
Sure.
So he sets this up at the end of December. He doesn't ask, let's work together. He doesn't say, let's have a leadership. I told his buddy, Mike Thiessen, I'll have a leadership race against anyone at any time. Roman, Rick, Randy, Derek, all of them, whatever you want. You bring anyone, let's do a leadership. Let's end this speculate. No one wants to do a leadership against me. Okay, that's fine. That's fine. We're not going to have a leadership because no one wants to run a leadership against me. Okay. So you go off, you raise money for 3 months. You tell your supporters, which is what Derek's doing, he's going to fight Doug Ford in the next election. You do your first campaign event virtually in the ridings wrapping around Cambridge, right? Like you have nowhere else to go. You're not doing it in Hastings. Your first virtual campaign event is in the ridings around Cambridge, and people in the city of Cambridge are getting the invite. That's a clear attack on Belinda to confuse people there, right? Yeah. So you're doing all that. You know, because the New Blue Party has publicly said, we've got 112 candidates and we've got 12 ridings left. You know, he knows that our 200 applicants, or 150 at the time, had paid $125 each, that they've gone through a background stage, that we've had a couple nominations, that more nominations are coming. He knows all that. And then he has the gall to tell people in public that he wants us to go into a secret room and negotiate with him and put the ridings on the map and say, yeah, okay, I'm going to go back to my grassroots members in the New Blue Party who've spent money and time for a year and a half donating, buying memberships, getting people involved. And I'm going to say to them, President in so-and-so riding, thanks for all your work. Thanks to the candidate. But you know what? We're not going to run a candidate in this riding because Derek might run. We don't know. He might not. And he thinks I'm going to do this 2, 3, 4, 40 times. I don't know how many times. Is there no better way to destroy a new party than doing that?
That would immediately, it's essentially, if you agree to that, you would be banning yourself from the debate because there is zero chance you can get on the debate stage if there's only 4 of you.
Who cares about the debate? I'm telling you that we've got people that have spent 1.5 years of their money and their time, have signed up riding associations, are itching at the bit to campaign the next election, went through a background check and an interview and spend money on it. And this guy thinks I'm going to go after we announce them as candidates to tell them you're out because Derek's in, right? And
and I'm just listing other issues that are with that.
Yeah, you're right.
It essentially keeps you, it immediately throws a ceiling on how well you can do in the election, which is maybe 10,000 votes if you're not running everywhere.
Right. And like we said earlier, like if you don't run a candidate, you know, you have family or friends, you live in Windsor and you got a cousin who lives in Ottawa or a friend in Ottawa and you're in Windsor and you're asking the cousin in Ottawa, is their candidate of this party? No. Oh, okay. They must be a fringe party because they're not running candidates everywhere. The cumulative impact of running 124 candidates under one party brand is there's nothing better I can do for Ontario voters than run a candidate in every riding. It helps the candidate in Windsor West. It helps Belinda in Cambridge. It's going to help me. It helps the guy running in Toronto, the woman running in Mississauga, right across the map. As soon as we cut that down to 60, 70, 80, the whole thing is a sham. And what better way to help Doug Ford and the PCs than not create a comprehensive political party? What better way to do a gut punch to the members of our party? So it's no wonder our board is not even interested in sitting down with this guy. It's like, you are a schemer and you are an exploiter of conservatives, and you've done it over and over and over again. And it's too bad that the 11 people who emailed me at the New Blue haven't seen this, that this guy didn't ask to work together in October, in November, in December, in January, in February. And it's too bad his team didn't say anything about Belinda getting barred for 90 days from Queen's Park, standing up against critical race theory. He basically pretended for a year that the New Blue Party didn't even exist, right? And he finished his deal with Erin O'Toole. He attacked Leslyn Lewis. And the minute we called them out on voting in favor of critical race theory, they got upset. And they said, I can't believe, what did he say? I can't believe that this guy, Jim, is attacking me. Because it's okay for Derek to criticize Leslyn Lewis, but it's not okay for us to call out Derek and his co-conspirators and Rick for their voting record and their public positions. That's all fair game, and his actions are all fair game. And he might like it better when he's the one doing the attacking, but when you're setting up another party and you're working for the PC party and you're an operative and trying to subvert democracy and sabotage what we're doing, I'm going to call you out on it. And when your number one premise for starting a party is education, and your friends at PAFE are telling their supporters, get ready, we're going to get a political option ready for you for June, and their whole thing is parental rights and critical race theory, and their party, the Ontario Party, is one guy at Queen's Park, Rick Nichols, and they can't even get on the same page on that vote. Like, did no one on that team think of calling Rick Nichols and saying, hey, this is like the whole point of our party, and this is what we're emailing everybody for donations for. It's kind of an important vote, so make sure you don't vote in favor of it. They couldn't, like, Derek couldn't even control one MPP, but he's going to be the premier.
Yeah, it's all beyond insane. Why it's right, and why did I trying to outline these sort of meta political stupidity of this? You're doing a good job of outlining these sort of. It's just not ethical to make these sort of backroom deals to form these.
Well, just something else that's not ethical too is that something that drives me up the wall is whenever I hear, and this is happening, this isn't just in the New Blue situation that in Ontario, you hear it all the time in American politics in other countries, is that someone's being called out for being, why are you being divisive? When it's literally just the truth, where essentially, like, be a little bit wary of people who label things that they can't even contend are false. that it's somehow being divisive, despite the fact I've heard the most disgusting lies behind the scenes about how Jim's a terrible person. I've literally had people who've never met Jim in their lives just tell me, self-diagnose Jim, say, well, he's not mentally well. Or like, he's mean to Belinda. He's mean to Belinda.
Well, that's kind of personal, and it's unfortunate that that's politics, right? Like they're not interested in working with us. That's why they didn't approach us to work in the New Blue. The smear campaigns against us have been like pretty nasty for 5 years. The Sloan team started with their smear tactics all the way back in 2018, before Sloan was even an MP at that PC convention when I ran for president. And they'll just say whatever they want. They'll just say, whatever they want to slander me. They'll never say it publicly because they know when you do it publicly, it might not end up too well for you. But I don't do that. I don't go after personal stuff about people. I call them on their record. And when you're telling people that Rick Nichols got kicked out of the PC party because he stood up for people who against mandates, that's totally false. Rick Nichols was giving the Ford government an A- grade in public, saying they did an excellent job. And he did not say anything for over a year when every single Ontario citizen was being coerced into taking the vaccine. He only stood up for himself, and he only got kicked out because the PC party decided that all their caucus members had to take the vaccine. So when Derek's sending emails out and saying Rick stood up for the unvaccinated, that's like that. I don't know. What do you call that? Like Rule 8 of Jordan Peterson's book. Rule 8 is tell the truth, or at least don't say a lie. It's pretty simple. It's a pretty simple, and it doesn't take too much to look at their emails. And if you're following what's going on, and say, you know what, these claims they're making about wanting to work together, they just don't hold water. They don't hold water when you come out less than 90 days before the election and we got 112 candidates saying that, we're going to stand down a bunch of candidates, and they haven't even, do they even have candidates? I don't even know.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really think they might got like 4 or 5 people, but like I don't like I click ignore now. Like I maybe why it's more in on the Derek Sloan stuff.
I saw one that was I saw one that was a little bit concerning. Who was like a formerly part of a Sons of Odin organization.
Yeah, and we'll see.
Like they obviously aren't doing background checks.
Look, I make jokes like it's not a joke. We really did get 11 emails asking about this because the people that follow us and our members or donors, they've figured it out by now, right? Like they know what's going on. If you followed me and Belinda for the last few years, you know what's going on. You know, and you understand it, and you could put the pieces together. Derek does have support, though, right? Like there are voters out there in Ontario who watched him go through a leadership. And when you get through a leadership and you don't get kicked out, you get a lot of coverage, right? And when people still write about that leadership, his name gets put in the articles, and he's gotten a lot of exposure. And like for me, I feel bad that people are handing him over money, thinking that he's actually putting together a political party. And we get a few emails, like I said, and people say there's going to be a vote split. But here's what's going to happen. There's not going to be a vote split because he's not running 124 candidates. Rick Nichols is not even going to run. Like I don't have any evidence of this except for the patterns that I see. So I'm going to guess right now. And maybe Rick will prove me wrong. But I
think you might have just guilted them into like, you might have just forced them into being like, oh, now we have to.
Well, and there's a difference between running and substantially actually running. Anyone can just register the name.
But I said this about Randy. Randy's not running. And he announced, and there was an independent article saying he's running for premier. And I said he's not going to run the next election. And he didn't run. And Rick has been saying he's going to retire. And he briefly said he's running again. And I'm not convinced that he's running again. So the risk is you don't run a candidate in a certain riding, and these guys don't end up running. And now the people in that riding don't have anyone to vote for. I also don't think they're going to run very many candidates at all, whether they run themselves or not. They're going to put some candidates in Toronto and downtown London and downtown Ottawa, and maybe in a couple seats in the north, and maybe in a couple seats where the PCs feel very, very, very confident they can win. Basically seats where it's not going to do the PC party any damage. And that's the way the Stop the Sex Ed party ran their 3 candidates last election. They ran 2 candidates in downtown Toronto. And we're going to run candidates everywhere.
Yeah, and I think that's a solid prediction of they run candidates in the places that it doesn't draw any support away from battleground. They're not going to run any candidates in battleground states or battleground ridings.
Right.
I think that's a pretty safe.
That cuts into the money that they can pay themselves out from the party budget if they run in other places.
I'm not going to slander them. Like, I don't know who they're paying whatever. That's fine. If they have people doing honest work and they want to pay a salary. That's fine. But I just feel sorry for the people that are donating money to that party on the premise that he's going to fight Doug Ford and put a comprehensive fight and he's going to stick to it. Don't they have to pay that money back if they don't run? No, they don't have to. No, they're running a political party and you donate and they have expenses and they'll pay the expenses and you'll get a tax credit at the end of the year. And then you can ask questions later. So if they run, more power to them. Here's the big risk of what they're doing. Aside from the fact that we've spent some time talking about this when we could have been talking about the new blueprint. So it's an effective move on their part, right? Like, it's effective. They've just consumed an hour of my time or whatever, half hour talking about this issue. So good for them. They get a point for that. The tragedy of what's going on here, though, and Daniel likes to make jokes, but like, let's get a little serious here because it is serious business.
Flip the Wyatt.
Do you guys appreciate Belinda being at Queen's Park for the last 4 years, right?
Oh,
You appreciate it, right? And Roman's running for federal leader. Randy's not running. We'll see if Rick runs. I don't think there's any other independent, unless I'm missing someone, who's been challenging the Ford government at all, right? At Queen's Park. It's been basically Belinda with some flashes from Roman, right?
Yeah.
So now Derek is doing a virtual event in Waterloo region, Kitchener, Brant, Cambridge. He's causing confusion there. He's got a following across Ontario. He's dropping emails. And what he's doing is he's putting at risk the ability for Belinda to get reelected and for the New Blue Party to elect MPPs on June 2nd. That's what he's doing. And it'll be a real tragedy if Derek Sloan keeps this up right to June 2nd and doesn't stand down. It'll be a real tragedy if he keeps this up and we narrowly lose. Belinda narrowly loses in Cambridge and we narrowly lose in other ridings. And, you know, he likes to say, he said, I think yesterday or the day before, he's not running a candidate against Belinda. Well, that's news to me. I didn't know that. We'll see if he changes his mind. But the noise he's making in and around the Cambridge Waterloo region riding, the backroom slander and the whisper attack that they're doing against me and Belinda is created to thwart our efforts to get Belinda reelected and get other New Blue MPPs reelected. And it would be a tragedy if on June 3rd, we wake up in the morning and the entire Queen's Park is Liberal, NDP, and PCers, and there's no Belinda in there to challenge these guys, to blow the whistle on critical race theory, to challenge them on higher taxes and progressive bills. That's what really is the tragedy. And as sad as it is, people are donating, they're going to figure it out. But we might be stuck on June 3rd with a 4-year government and no opposition in there because Derek Sloan and his friends want to keep this charade up.
And if you guys can actually like win a few ridings, if you guys have solid infrastructure and you're really competing hard and you win a bunch of ridings, especially around the Cambridge area, if the Ford government loses seats and they're in a minority government scenario, it would be very likely that they would have to go along with what the New Blue Party wants. So the New Blue Party could, potentially have a lot of power after this election.
Well, I'm not going to sit here and speculate the mathematical models of what might come out. I know that our ceiling is really high. If you look at the profile of people that support the New Blue, it's on a profile standpoint, if you were to take that out to 14 million people, the sky's the limit. And our biggest challenge is awareness. And we're going to get that awareness if we run 124 candidates and we run a full campaign. And we're going to stick at this for the long term and nothing's slowing us down. Look, I had a bone cancer in my leg and I'm learned to walk again. It hasn't slowed us down. This nonsense is not going to slow us down long term, but these guys might delay the eventual breakthrough of a grassroots voice at Queen's Park. That's what they might do. So Wyatt says we might win a handful of seats. Maybe we can win 20. Maybe we can win 40. I don't know what we could do. But what these guys are trying to do is slow that down because they know I'm not going to stop. They know I work harder. They know I stick to my commitments. They know me. They know when this guy does axe the carbon tax, when he runs for federal leader, when he runs for president, when he says he's going to start a political party and run 124 candidates, when Belinda says she's against critical race theory and she's taking a petition to Queen's Park, they know we're going to deliver. They know we're not going to stop, and they know we're going to work harder than them. So they're coming up with ways to slow us down. And that's the real tragedy, is if they they slow us down for the next election, and there's not much and not enough opposition of the three establishment parties at Queen's Park.